Heavy duty watercolour paper, Bockingford £200 extra rough, and I've taped some down. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is sketch it. So I don't. So some people may have sketched it because that's where I put the image on. Just put my glasses on because I can't see a thing close up again. And if you're sketching it with this one, it's on a hill, so it's quite perspective goes a little bit out the window. But if you look at the house, which is a man-made object and it's always got straight lines, you look at the side of the roof of the house, it's going away from you to an angle, to a perspective, to a point on the horizon line, which is about here, yeah. And the same at the bottom of the roof. And then if you draw a line, straight line across, it's more or less where the top of the lean-to at the front of the building is the bottom of that, because it's near enough a straight line. So if you draw a line just below the halfway point, you don't have to do it all across, but that's going to be actually a kind of a third in, or just over a third in, if that's central, where the lean-to or vestibule, whatever, is coming out from the house. It's quite simple, so that's near enough a straight line. And we're not nitpicking, we're not measuring, we're not doing anything like that. Then we can have the angle of the pivots. This comes all the way down here and goes around the corner. And it's not very deep neither, so it's coming just, as they come nearer, they go wider, because they're curving like that, yeah. And follow the path, they're following a path down the hill, like that. And then the house from there, I can just see the back wall, and the angle of the roof is steeper, and as you get to the top of the roof, steeper still. So this is where you want the apex like that to be in the centre of the house, the cottage. Lots of little lines. Put the windows in from that side. You can just see a window over the hedge like that. We've got houses in the background as well, which are just kind of shapes with a few windows and a few trees and a kind of big tree here, but this is part of the foreground area. And we've got some lovely branches coming out, keep them nice and irregular, angular, like that. Nice and sketchy, disappearing into this mass of this beautiful tree. So that's more or less the house done. And then we had a couple of windows just underneath the eaves there. We've got a lovely shadow coming from that roof as well. All this is in shadow, as you can see. And then there's a bit of a shadow from the apex of the roof, from the soffits. And then when we get to, there's a kind of telegraph pole there, actually. And there is a curve, you want to do a curve, but it doesn't really matter about that. And then here we disappear into, there's a few buckets where they put their rubbish and things like that. And then we get the angle of the road, which is quite steep, yeah. And we get some lovely shadows here coming off from the trees on the right hand side. We've got a bit of the curb and then the angle from the trees. It's quite steep, okay, because you're going around the corner down the hill towards Bowness, okay. So this tree takes up the majority of the picture in the middle, and it disappears behind this larger tree, which is going to take up quite a bit of the picture. So if you look at the width of the trunk, we've got kind of the width of a trunk like that. Try and make your tree trunks a little bit fatter as they go down to the bottom where they sit in the floor, because they do. And then here we've actually got some bushes and the pivots again, that just a few that just in front of the tree, which is quite interesting, because that's going to leave a shadow, but it also leaves some nice highlights where you've got the highlights from the pivots against the tree, which is quite dark, and that just sits into the floor like that. We've also got a field at the back, and then from there we've just got these trees, and I know it's very green, but we're about it. That's the beauty of the problem with living in a green country. Everything's green, and we try and make lots of different greens actually, but Viridian works quite well. You can get a lot of cool and a lot of warm greens from that. And then if you don't like it, you can just change to a different colour, different palettes, entirely up to you. You're the artist. From here I've got the shape of the leaves. These are the branches I've got coming down from there, quite thick at the top like that. There's a lovely highlight there on the side of that tree. I could use a bit of wax on there. And these are the branches hanging over, and you can use a rigger for that. And these branches, these leaves go all the way over there, so they're quite dark. So if you wanted to cross hatch like that, you can do. I hope you can see that. But what I will do is use a pen just to reinforce your drawing, because we sketch with the drawing, and then if things are wrong, you can alter it with your pen if you like. There is a sign there, and it's just the sign to say this is the hotel, way to the hotel. You don't have to put it in, but it does leave one big kind of shadow in that area. Okay, like that. Lovely light and a bit of dark here. So underneath the trees there, you can see through the branches, and you can see some of the branches coming out, and this area you can see the sky through it, as well as these branches like that. Again, angular. I'm not going to spend a long time as well today. Again, it's exhausting setting up and then doing it. I know it's not 2 hours, but 1 hour is enough. I always say 1 hour is enough for a watercolour anyway, because you tend to do too much. So if you can get yourself doing it in 1 hour, great. It stops you being too fussy. Get the angles going away from you to the point. Yeah, that's why we do it in pen. Lovely shadow. The top of the privets, there's a window in the vestibule, whatever. There's a nice shadow coming from the roof. There's a door there, and that disappears behind this privet. If you want to put the bins in, it's just a shape, so you don't need to call them dust bins. You could just put a shape in, and the privets come down like that, and then they turn, like I said, they turn a corner. A few things in the garden. Keep that apex similar, you know. The other side is near enough on the same level. If you draw a line, it's just a little bit higher, that's all. So, but it doesn't really matter at this distance. And then we put the window in, something like that. Just a shape, or a lean-to actually in front of the window there. A few trees, house there, and a window, and a couple of conifers in this big green area, and there's a branch there. Very loose, very quick. The shadows on the floor are really important, because we want them to link this foreground area to the background, and we usually put the shadows in last anyway. Yeah, I've got a knot in the tree. I'm going to put that. These are the branches, these are the bushes in the background. Squiggly lines, just get a feeling for where they are and where they sit on the floor, and where the field is, and the shadow from some of these trees on your floor. And this is all one big tree that actually is at the back of the roof of the house, so it's all one big area. That is your, like I said, your telegraph pole, and car underneath if you want to put the car in. I'm going to put a bit of wax on that. Not much wax on this one today. If you do use a lot of wax, you need to rub the pencil out. I might not actually bother, but just put a bit on there. I will put a bit of wax on the roof, because when I do the tree, it will stop it running into the roof. Yeah, and I got a lovely shadow from the bottom of that roof there. Okay, everything in there except for a few seagulls, some pigeons or whatever there may be. Didn't see any pigeons. Not too much, it gets complicated. So all this area is in shadow, and I'll get a few of these branches just making a lovely dark shadow on the floor. Okay, so thinking about the picture, I'm looking at the picture. You just try and take all the darks away, which is not as easy, but you try and take the darks away. I'm just putting wax down my telegraph pole and the top of the roof here. It's just a straight line, just a bit of kind of wax, the bottom of the roof and the back. So when I paint around that now, it's just going to run around it. Now make sure you press on. I won't bother with the windows. If you want to do windowsills and things like that, you can do, but it's up to you. A bit too fussy with the wax. And I'm going to put some here, just where that bush and the pivots is in front of this tree trunk, because I quite like that. And I'm going to put a bit of whites just on the edge of that tree trunk. It just overlaps a bit. You can put some at the back of the field just to stop the water running or the pigment running into it, and then that's about it. The darkest part of your picture is going to be this tree overhanging, creating this lovely kind of archway, and your shadows and some of the pivots in the foreground and whatever. You've got a lovely warm colour there, and it's actually very alizarin in it. And if you think about the pathway, we'll keep it nice and light in the distance. We can add more alizarin as we come down here, and then we add a bit of blue to it to make it go a bit purple. Yeah, if you throw salt in there, because we're using salt again, for those who don't like it, I'll put a bit of wax on top of that pivots to keep them clean. A bit of wax in, and you get a lovely kind of pebbly effect where you've got the gravel on the road. We've got lovely shapes in the trees, so you can use your salt there. Just play about with it. If it doesn't work, don't use it again. It's up to you. You get used to where you can put it, where you throw it. But don't throw it all over your floor. Somebody said it took them ages to sweep up. So yeah, don't mess about. And if you do throw it over your shoulder in the end, so it's not bad luck. So I'll get the colours, which I haven't got ready again, but I get quite a lot of birds cadmium yellow, which is that one. Lots of water with it, so we're going to mix that with a lot of bird sienna and viridian. The bird sienna is quite warm as well, and that mixed with viridian makes a nice kind of warm green. How we can see this, I tried to make it tilt so you can see it better. This is our alizarin, which you've actually got in your foreground area with the shadows out. It's quite nice. Ultramarine, I'm going to put that in this one because there's quite a bit of it. And viridian green. I'm going to use some cerulean and keep that in the next palette because I don't want that to get dirty. So that's some cerulean blue, which is a really nice warm colour. Yeah, like that. Lots of water. More water at this stage, less and less as you go on. And then my final colour is viridian green. Quite a lot of that as well. But it's quite strong, so at the end we'll be using a lot of this kind of viridian green. Okay, so if you mix it with your smaller brush first, and then pick it up with your big kind of brush, so you can put colours on quite easy. A lot of people do start with the sky. It's entirely up to you. I usually start with warm colours. You can always wash the sky in over the top, and the only thing here is you've got a bit of this cerulean blue, and it actually comes down into the back of the trees here, you know. But we've got a lovely light area over here, which is behind the houses, which comes down to the horizon, which makes you give it a depth. So if I could splatter those leaves in and branches in later, but I can add a lot of cadmium yellow to get that lovely warmth, which is what I actually need. Not bothering too much about this tree because it's quite dark, and I can splatter quite a bit of bird sienna. Even if it was too dark, I can always use a bit of gouache at the end. Gouache, sorry. Using cadmium yellow then, and then the side of your brush. If you look at your field, you've got a lovely kind of warm area of green, and it's also in your tree trunk, but we're going to add green to that. So if you put your yellow on first and then add your green, and you create textures, because that just comes down into a foreground area. Yeah, not being too fussy about where it goes at the moment. You can go over this tree because it's quite dark in the background, and that takes you right down to the house. Just putting that in as a warm area, and then also the hedges, so that's nice and warm on top. It turns the corner so it goes a little bit darker, so I've just got some green, and I put green at the top of that just to add that curve in the fence. You want to keep some blue going into this just for trees in the distance if you want, so it's still wet there. If you use the side of your brush, stop yourself being fussy, okay? And that yellowy green, so I've not gone around the house yet because I want to keep that, and I got the yellowy green which goes right at the back there because it's the thing you see through the darkness of that tree. Okay, we've got a bit of green there which is more cool It's on the cool side, so it's more viridian, and a bit of blue, so you're getting some kind of cooler colours, especially in the pivots there, which is just in front of it as well. So yeah, just creating these different warm and cools in the grass area, because I want to keep a lot of that lovely warm, and then I can splatter some of that sky in later. I'm not bothering with that yet because I can paint that later. And then if I look at the floor, I keep that lovely and light. Now if you look at the floor, we've got sienna. It's a really nice sienna. If you take the blobs off as well, because we don't want it running too much, just take the blobs off your tree and use a bit of sienna on the floor. I've got a lovely sunlight here coming just in front of the bins like that, and you add a lot of water to that, and just keep it nice and warm. And as I'm coming forward, I'm adding more alizarin, so keep your brush clean if possible. It's got a bit of muck on it. More alizarin, that's coming into my shadows there. I'm not putting the shadows in yet. This is just the alizarin in the floor, yeah, which we can throw some salt in, and then we're going to add a bit of blue to that, so you get a cooler kind of pebbly colour. Use the paper to give you that nice dark kind of shape, all the way across here. A little bit darker there, so that gives you a depth in your picture, doesn't it? So I've actually created depth there. Get me grade, very fine grade salt, throw it in your foreground, and you get a little pebble marks. Let the salt do the work. You can throw some in the trees at the back as well if it's still damp. It doesn't matter, we can paint those again later. And as we're looking at the house as well, that is burnt sienna. It's just kind of a warm colour, so we're just using a bit of burnt sienna. Keep tissue handy, keep your palette clean. Don't let colours mix, especially 3 colours, or two at the most, 3 too many really, start going mucky. So I've just got my burnt sienna, and I put that on my roof of my house, and I can put that in here. When you do houses, try and make it look like there's other things happening in the house. We've got these shadows and all underneath, but it's not just kind of a one big flat shape. The roof on the lead-to is quite light, and then it's very warm at the bottom, very light at the bottom. And then the other side of the house is just in a shadow, so we can use a bit of purple for that actually, just to get the shadows on the right hand side there. And then when we paint around that later, that will stand out a lot more. So this is the front of the house, and as you do it, just add other colours. So we add a bit more kind of burnt sienna or alizarin, just to give it that shape. We're going to darken that later, so don't worry about it. So the trees at the back are going to bring out the top of that roof. If you add a bit of dark at the top of the roof, let it run, you get these really simple shapes. Okay, you can carry on with this the pivots, but while they're actually wet, we can do a bit of this kind of side of your brush technique, because you want it to look quite dark in areas. So we're using the side of the brush, and then as we get down here, like I said, it goes around the corner, so it gets a little bit darker. The top of the pivots are a lot lighter, so you just keep that lovely light. So when I paint at the back of those later, they'll all stand out. I'll put that in while I'm at it, because it's drying quite quick again, because it's red hot in here. Should have gone outside in this lovely sun. This is this lovely tree here. I've just added a bit of sienna to it to change it. And there's some colour there as well, which is part of that tree, which comes into the foreground actually. And then this one at the back, just drop some colour in. Don't worry about painting every leaf and branch, because it's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, it's impossible within the time scale we've actually got. Keep my cerulean blue. Trouble with cerulean blue, if you contaminate it, it usually turns green very quickly, as opposed to ultramarine. So you have to keep it with a lot of water, and don't let any other paint get to it, because I'm just going to drop that in, kind of thing. Like I said, I could drop some in there, although there isn't much blue there, but drop some in that sky area. You go behind the trees, because trees are darker. And we can take off light areas. And if you want to, sometimes it's nice to add a bit of ultramarine to it, just to give you a kind of depth in the sky. And we do the same thing over here. So a bit more blue, ultramarine, and more cerulean. Yeah. So I'm working quite quick. Don't try and keep up if you don't want. And some of this blue you can see through the trees. I'm leaving areas because I want to splatter some warm greens in as well, and that goes into the trees. And then again you can use water just to soften it, so you get a nice soft area of sky going down to your horizon. Right. Keep your trees in your background. There's some at the back of the house, on that little house, and then you've got some greeny blue trees in the garden, which are here. We keep them greeny blue because we want them to be in the distance. Yeah, we don't want them to be too warm, we don't want them to come forward too much, and this is where you get this really nice shadow in the garden. You can put windows in later and stuff like that. Just go above the privets like that. We can add some more other warms if you want, just near the privets. Just break it up. You don't have to have the same colour. It gets boring if you've just got one big dark tone. So that's the top of the privets in that area, and that's the shadow on the trees, the privets at the side of the road. We're going to darken that area later, and I've got some lovely shadows there. So where the greeny sienna, kind of warmer, still warm edges and whatever here, which come down, just everything kind of lighter at this moment, and then adding the dark should make them stand out, shouldn't it? The sign, which if you put in, like I've put in but you don't have to, is quite cool. And then the edges of these pivots, I just want to darken them slightly. It's good if you can add slightly darker colour by mixing blue and green together, so as it dries it runs into other parts. So these privets are just in front of the sign there, going down to the side of the road. And again I'm using a big brush, so I can't get too fussy. Just making this shadow against the road. And the tree, when I paint it, is going to be nice and dark at the back of this. So again, if you want to break the line up, throw a bit of salt in to give you some textures. Keep your brush clean. Keep more water handy if you need it. Just fill your pot up. I don't keep changing my water because you'll be here all day. If you look at this now, I've got a lovely gravel effect. Yeah? I don't have to do too much to that really. If I paint the shadows over the top later, it should work really, really well. Okay? So looking at the field now, because this is dry, as you paint, you're kind of planning how it's going to look. So, you know, you're putting the lights in and then move across to another area. Or you could put a big wash in and leave it like we did with the floor. But then let it dry. Go back to the first bit that you did, which should be dry then. And then you've got time to work into it. So you're getting a nice feeling for your subject. Still looks a bit dark on that side. Don't know why. But anyway, I think it's because of my camera. We'll set it up one day. I'm not a director or Stephen King, so here goes, second one live. So yeah, looking at the trees in the background, again keeping this bluish kind of green and sienna-ish colour. I know I keep saying bluish sienna green, but it's a combination of all kind of three, because if you look at these areas, as I come up to this tree, I get a nice dark area, which is here. So I can just kind of plonk, that's the technical term for putting paint on, plonk some colour there, and as it gets down to where the field is in the background, it goes darker, and it brings out the edge of the field. This is where you can do a bit of splattering for texture, so you're getting little dark shapes in between all those lovely warm shapes. And that's actually just what I'm doing. You know, you can control where you splatter if you're lucky. And so I'm adding a bit of blue there for background trees, which are in the distance behind those. And if we put a bit of blue and green and you're going a little bit darker, a little bit thicker, less pigment. So as you add this, we get this really nice shape. Look where the sunlight's coming from. Yeah, it's coming from that direction. Sorry, I nearly said that then. It's coming from that direction, so everything has got a shadow on this side. So if you look at that area, I've got a tree there, which you can just drag up the side of your brush, which goes into that shadowy area there, and then this blends into this area. Not too much messing about it, keep it in the distance, nothing too fussy. Alright, like that. And we can darken it later as well, so don't worry. You tend to go, if you go too dark at this stage, you want to do the whole painting here, then add your shadow. So if I look at that tree, I'm not touching it because I want to paint the whole tree and the trunk and everything. It's got a climber up it as well, but I'm not bothered with it. And the back of the house in one go. So the reason I'm starting over this side is so by the time I get to the other side, it should be dry as well. And again, we can add green and alizarin, which is a very, very strong dark, which is that. See? So as you add that, it brings out the shadows, which is also a few shadows here, covering the side of that field. And they go, that's a bit of alizarin, and we can add a bit of more green and burnt sienna to it, because we'll get a warmer kind of green. Using the side of your brush gives you these lovely textures. If you look at nature, there's nothing really straight lines about it. It's just all kind of higgledy-piggliness, yeah. And that's what we're actually trying to create, higgledy-piggliness. If you get a big area of tone, block it in, squint your eyes, take your glasses off, you know. Splashing with water as well helps break things up. I'm just going to add a bit more dark there because I want that to lead you into this area. So it's very dark, and it's, because it's quite wet now, it will run. But I want to leave gaps, I want to leave shapes, I want to leave things coming out like branches or twigs or anything that not kind of hard to paint with a brush. That is going to lead into that shadow. So I could actually do it now, or I could just leave it and see what happens at the end. We'll throw a bit more salt in to stop it running, like that, because it does kind of clog it up and stops it. Okay, and I'll use a bit of that green actually, just the side of this tree as well, to keep it nice and dark, because I want to bring that out a little bit. So moving over here, I've got some shapes with a bit of alizarin, touch of blue. I've got a kind of purple shape. There is a gate there, and people will tell me that there's a gate there and it's got bars on and stuff like that, but you do not have to put the bars on, but if you want to do, that's fine. And that shape goes into another shape that's actually where the bins are, or a shape on the floor, which is like that. Just a purple area, nothing too, but where it hits the floor we're getting a lovely light, dark. So we're using ultramarine blue and a bit of alizarin, or you can paint into this kind of shadow. It is a bit too early for doing shadows, but you know, we can actually, I'll just show you what you can achieve by just adding a few shadows, which goes into, because the trees are reflected into that, casting shadows across the road like that. So we can put that one in because it's quite light as well, and we can always make it darker. As you get down to here, I'm adding more alizarin colour for deeper shadows. Okay, and we'll darken the house now because it needs to be darker under the roofs. So if I use some blue, like this, and where the eaves come over the side of the house so the water runs off and not down your walls, it goes nice and shadowy. We can add a few windows if you want. So it brings out the shadow. And then this side of the house, I've left the windows light. There is one with a window open, which is like that. And then we can paint around them again. I'm trying to leave a little bit of light just where the eaves are, the apex of the house. And again, we can blend that, and we can add other colours. So we want, you know, burnt siennas, warms, something that brings it down, because you get reflections from the floor. Yeah. The house in the background, which I've nearly forgot about, is a lovely alizarini roof, but it's not that bright, so you just take it off again. Okay. It's got a few shadows. It's got a shadow here, but it's also got a couple of windows and whatever. And it's just a shape, isn't it? So, you know, you don't have to do too much to it. It's keeping that lovely shape and depth to it. While the sky's dry now, I'm going to add some sienna and some cadmium yellow and a bit of green, because I want to create this lovely light, warm green leaves area. You can do a lot by splattering, because you're making these random marks like that. As long as you're careful and then join them up with branches, yeah, you'll have the same effect. Yeah, you cannot paint leaves just by using a brush. You need to get a feeling for the subject. As long as you don't run, yeah. So if I had a bit of alizarin, ultramarine, and then I'm just going to paint some of these branches. You will see the sky between the branches, won't you? Yeah, and it just links them together. So that's the top of that area, you know, in the corner. So it's quite interesting. We don't have to do a lot to that. It goes nice and dark here. If you paint darker tones in it, you get alizarine's a really good colour to use on tree branches and bark, because it does go a little bit warmer, you notice when you see it. And then I add some alizarin and blue like that. Rig a brush, use your fingernail, anything. Thin marks, nothing too thick. Alright, and then as you're coming down that side, so I suppose I am working kind of down the picture, because I want this to be this tree coming out from that side and the light underneath it. So again, I'm dragging it with my brush. I'm just looking at the shapes within those shadowy parts of that tree, and I'm trying to recreate them as quickly as possible without too much fuss, and just getting the light catching the branches. Okay. As you can see, the trees in the garden need to go a lot darker now. As it dries, they go light. Yeah. So we've got this feeling. I'll put some on the house as well. Get that lovely dark up there. As they dry, we get these really nice dark shapes, and we can strengthen the dark to bring out the hedge, like I said. Okay, keep them in the distance, they're not doing anything. This telegraph pole hopefully is going to stand out when I put the wax on. But sienna, what time is it? Lynn's not with me today, she's in the garden painting this. I hope so anyway. So I don't know if you're still with me or not, but anyway, I'm going to finish it. The hedge, again, little bits of dark here and there, fixing things, shadows, side of a window, these inverted L's, quite interesting. Look where the light's coming from, top of the roof, the apex on the windows, the shadow coming from that direction, little things that give you direction of sunlight. Yeah, and we've got something on the front that looks like a bit of a warm reflection actually, and the window there. So where the pivot's finished there is just one tone. Now if I go at the back of the houses, all around the houses, stand back, look at that. There's a load of writing on the side. Anyway. So I go to look. I'll drag the shadows into the road, I think, then I can let that dry and look at it later. So, but cerulean blue, I need to put on that, because I put the sign in, it's in shadow, so I'll just put cerulean blue, and then it goes kind of viridian, so because it got a nice viridian kind of colour because it's in shadow. And then we go into the road, and I'm using ultramarine again. Keep palette clean, because we want to keep clean colour. And just mop up anything that you don't need now yet. Lots of water. Start with the blue. Shadows are really nice. It doesn't matter if the sun or the green runs into it, because that's what would happen. You'd have all these different colours. And usually shadows have a hard edge and the reflected light in the middle. So if I get alizarin as well, as I get down to the bottom, so I could add more alizarin to this warm area. But I'm going to add it to the blue as well and keep a nice blue shadow first and then add alizarin. So if you get the paint ready, like I said, it saves a lot of hassle. Try and leave gaps because we have got dappled sunlight here and there, yeah, just a few as you're coming down here then. So that is a lovely dark, deep, purplish shadow just going into where the edge of the road is, and then we change into a kind of darker tone. You can lift off to make it a little bit lighter and blend it, soften edges. Shadows are not just dark shapes, they've got things going on in them. Like I said, reflected light. It's very hard talking for so long. Anyway, adding more darks up here because it is darker around that edge, and then as I'm coming down, leading that into the shadowy areas. Side of the tree, side of the right hand tree. So again, a bit more alizarin, and that's going to bring out that darker edge here, which is I think it's a pavement actually. Anyway, doesn't really matter. And I can do the same on this side, so that's a lovely blue. Small brush, dappled sunlight again, some coming from the edge of the path, the rest of it coming from there. Use a big brush actually. If you want to paint big areas, use a big brush. Go into the green because you want it to run, and we want that to, again, dappled kind of sunlight coming from that edge. Okay. Keep it lovely and shapes. Every now and again you kind of see a leaf coming out, shadow of a leaf or something. So adding more purple here, and the depth of the shadows, you know, makes it stronger and brings it forward. So it's just, I'm not putting any salt in because I've got the salt underneath, so we can leave that, let it run. I can glaze it as well later when it's dry to darken the background if I need to, but you don't really know. You're always better working from light to dark, and then if you need to glaze, you can glaze. But sometimes they're better left as they are. Well, a lot of times they're better. The quicker you do them, the better really. Okay, so I'll leave that for now. I have got the bigger brush as well because I might use that for, well, I will use it for branches later. And then I've got some more greeny blue, bluey green, not huey green, bluey green. Just where it hits the floor, the privets, and every now and again we get, like I say, some dark areas. You want to soften them as well, so don't have them all kind of the same. Add tones, bring tones off. Just where it changes colour. Like I said, the top of the privets is lighter, so we get a lovely light area. But nothing in corners, really. Keep it nice and simple if we can. A little more dark here, actually, in front of the dustbin. No, next to the dustbin. Viridian and blue is a lovely turquoise. I love the turquoisey colour. I really like looking at it because it's using it because it's a nice dark as well, like that. And let that run into the shadows. Right. And also we can use that bit of red with it and some blue if you want it to be on the blue side for this privet that's just in front of our tree. So if I paint the tree now, and the salt's done its work there as well. That's the side of the sign, not writing on it like some people would, or the bus, the car on the drive or whatever. Yeah. Keep it simple, more splatters. Hit your brush with the thing, hit your finger with the brush. Don't do that, it goes that way, in your face, alright? Just a tip, and they come out with spots all over you, and you think, what the hell have I been doing? And nothing's on your face. So adding a bit more dark as it hits the road or whatever. Anyway, I'll move on from that because it's getting a bit too fussy. Soften edges, add water, he says, and then some things disappear, some don't, some shadows. I'm going to do the big tree at the back of the house now, which is a nice big area again of warm green. Clean palette, mix yellow and green and a bit of sienna. I'm also going to use ultramarine blue and viridian green for the shadows. So if you want to get that ready as well, you can do it. It makes it much easier to drop in for these areas around the house later. You want to leave little gaps so you can see through the branches in the distance, and create that bluey green. I've got a lot warm here, so it doesn't really matter. But I do want to keep a bit of sienna and a bit of viridian for the warmer greens in the tree, which you can see. But they're darker than the yellowy bit. So if we start with that, and I just kind of add. Again, I'm not bothered about that tree, the big one, because that's the last thing I'm going to paint. So I've just kind of, this is a sienna green, which is quite warm. I'm just bringing out that shape of the whole tree behind the house. We have got a little bit in front of the tree trunk as well, but doesn't really matter. And let that run. And as I'm coming over this side, the trees are coming around like that. So I've got this a variegated thing going on side of your brush, and then I'm going to start using me bluey green. So I've got some warm there, and then take the bluey green, and you can do the branches with that as well, and then just take that into that lovely dark shape at the back of the house like that. While it's wet, you can add other colours. So we're coming down over the roof. That's where I put my wax so it won't run into the roof. Again, add darks. You want to see through the light in the background. So again, a bit more blue and a bit more green. For stronger darks, I bring out the edge of that roof. I hope my telegraph pole stands out. Yeah, that's it. That's just a massive green. It's dark. I paint around the side of the house. You can do it with a smaller brush if you want. And then coming down to where the car is actually. And because this is still wet, it's just going to blend into it. And like that, so I can just drag that over and get the feeling for the shape. So like I said, this big tree is going to cover that later. Alright, we can add a bit more dark to this for some of the leaves on that tree, because it's coming nearer. And yeah, if you need it, anything where you see needs a little bit more darker colour, stand back now and again. I can see, what can I see? A lot of colour. So with that, and then I'm going to use some red sienna and cadmium yellow. But we look at this colour, it's got a really nice kind of warmish tone to it, so I'm adding a bit of alizarin to that. And if you think about the colour of that, it got really, so this is my filbert brush, which I use quite a lot. And I'm going to drag all that into the shape of the tree. If you look at the colour of it against the sky, it's quite dark. And if you throw salt in, I forgot to mention that again, it will be darker. So now I want to add the shape of that tree using ultramarine blue. If you use burnt sienna with ultramarine blue, you get burnt umber. So do not be worried. Have I add really strong darks at this stage, letting them dry into a wet kind of wash, coming down into the branch, into the trunk of that tree. Try and miss out bits because you will see some of the leaves in front of the branches. I'm going to leave a little warm gap there actually as well. So this is a lovely green and blue mix with a bit of sienna, I think. I'm going to just add more to it as I come down, and that's going off into all that lovely dark area up there, which is going to cover that tree in a bit. Add more alizarin to give you a nice kind of tree trunky colour, especially at the top there because it goes really nice and warm. And there's a bit there which is the trunk coming out from the other side. Blend that in leave that lovely light. There's a bit of wax there, so we need to keep that. There's a tree climber there, but I'm not that bothered about it. And then as we're coming down, we're adding more kind of reflected lights, actually, and you're getting this, the bush there, which is just where I put the wax, is creating that really nice area against the tree trunk, which is going to be quite dark because it sits in that field like that. As you go darker, best time to go darker, I should say, is while it's wet. So if you add other tones, like the side of the bush there, we've got this really nice, use your brush for the shape of leaves. We've got this really nice overhang. This is alizarin and blue as well, and then it's mixing with the green, so we've got this really nice dark area. So the top of the tree trunk, we're getting shapes, shadows, just like that. Again, add some darks, let it blend. It's all about the darks now, because we need to bring out those really strong areas, and I'm using alizarin, ultramarine, varying amounts of it. So again, I'll probably use a bigger brush. You can leave some of the gaps between the trees because you want to see the sky and you want to see the warmth through it as well. Probably use a bigger brush actually. And that goes off the picture anyway, so it's all dark up there. Creating shadows. Think about how these branches curve down, how the light hits the leaves, and the way these branches just kind of fall and the leaves fall. We can't paint all the leaves like I said, but you can create the shape. Just add more green. Again, if you want to create these really nice areas at the end of a tree where all these leaves fall against, you know, the weight of all those branches, all those leaves on the branches, you're creating that shape. This is a mass of dark area, nothing too obvious here, except for this, with a bit of alizarin there as well. It gives you another depth. As you go up to the top of the tree, it's going darker against the sky. So we want to create that contrast against the sky and leave it, let it run. You can take, if you want it to curve, and people like curving trees, just take the light off in the middle so you get reflected lights. You can take the light off there, you see, so you get a lovely curve on the tree. So don't worry about, you know, not doing it now, because you can always do it later. It doesn't really matter. It's taking your time and seeing where the lights and darks are. That is a nice area. It actually overlaps there, where it's a twist in the tree trunk, and then that's bringing out the light on these pivots, which I'm quite pleased with actually. And there's a few here which we can just sometimes we use a straw just to blow and make irregular shapes, and that's everybody uses straws. We don't use them for drinking. Plastic ones now, we just use them for painting. Don't throw them in the sea or anything like that. So there's a lot going about. I've got loads of plastic straws if you want to. Still painting into it while it's damp. My darkest tones now are red and green, and there's hardly any water because we're actually creating the contrast. So against another area like that, we can paint the shapes or the darks within that tree, and it brings out that roof there, and this brings out the side of the house as well, so you get these lovely areas. The window, I've left some light there, but you don't have to leave light. And then the roof, like I said, there's a roof there, and then the windows are here. It's got 3 windows, but and that brings you down to the top of the privets again. This area at the side of the house is important because it gives you the end of the house. You've got a nice blue area there actually where the car is. Just paint over the car, put a window in if you want. And something in the garden against the side of the house. This is the shadow. So this is quite dark, yeah. alizarin and blue, alizarin and red, sorry. Complementary colours, yeah. So that keeps it from, stops using black as well. Because you don't really want black, alright? Because you want to keep your colours clean. And if you use black, I know certain people use them and they get fabulous effects, but if you get a different effect if you use greys and whatever. If you do use Payne's grey, which a lot of people like using, mix it with a colour, yeah, just keep that shape. So you get another colour rather than just a big flat shape. Okay, so it's just touches of where darks are going to be against lights. Yeah, bringing out a little shape here and a little shape there, here a shape, there a shape, everywhere a shape. Oh, MacDonald. And then using the side of the brush. See? The top of the hedge, just here, I want to bring that really close. So we can bring that a little, you can emphasise. Where the painting is better than a picture really, because you can create more depth by adding areas of tone that are not on the picture. So you can make things nearer by being darker or warmer or whatever. So here we've got this, whatever it is, and there's a shape there which is blue, and this is the side of the gate area, which I can see through. It's got bars on, but I'll just keep that. There's a dark area there, and then that goes into this bit, and that gives you a lovely depth in your picture. We kind of use that again. I keep going over that bit, but just to bring the edges nearer. And stand back. Every now and again, we need some branches here that are darker, like this. We do have thin branches that are kind of blue and cool because they're further away, but you will get branches that are very dark against the sky, like I said. So we can darken that as well. And zigzag, don't make it too curvy. Always have a zigzag going on. We can go dark inside the tree again, up there, and across the edges into the tree. These are dry brush stroke, and as you can see, it just gives you that nice texture. You see? So I'm just dragging it over the paper because the paper's helping quite a bit. There is a gate there with something in front of the house, but keep it in the distance. We can bring out that path, the edge of the path. I'm going to add more blue. Oh, we're not going too bad. We're up to, see how the alizarin and ultra green, sorry, make a really strong dark. And you think this was dark early on, but when I add it now, I can see it's got this really strong shadowy effect that brings it forward. Alright, so don't be frightened of contrast. It needs contrast. You need the shadows. There's no light without shadows, apparently. Again here, anything in the near distance, just create these little shapes, just to bring one area closer. And where the field is, you'll always get like a straight line. Really. Okay, and we can do the same there, a bit more alizarin. Quite happy with the shadows, probably leave those, and then we can add a bit more alizarin here, just in this foreground area, because it does change tonal value, more or less. Right, put that in, excuse me, and house in the distance, put a few windows in it, because no windows, there's shadow under the eaves. A bit more blue on the, just tickling up things now really, just tickling things up. I can add the shadow from a tree. You don't have to do the perfect tree, nobody's got to tell you the bits in between the light on these lovely green, warm green leaves. So I need to make those just stand out a little bit more as I go into the rest of the tree trunk. Again, very dark against the sky. Yeah. So it's alizarin, iridium, no water. This is why I use tubes, because your tubes don't dry up, where pans do. So you can pick up pure pigment. Yeah. A few blobs for strategically placed blobs, I should say again, for branches and leaves that are coming down under the tree, because they're very dark under there. That gives out your depth as well. At a window here, even if it's light, looking around the thing. This shadow's quite dark actually, so if I go a bit more alizarin here, because it's blue, and then it goes a little bit darker, and then that shadow comes into there. I'm just bringing it forward a little bit more, adding more alizarin, like that, warming it up, because that's on the picture. Can you see the warmth? I love that warmth actually. I want to keep it. Bringing it forward into the floor actually, and into the shadows, to give you that. And what I would do is just glaze a bit of this now to bring it nearer. You want clean colour, we don't want it to be mucky, yeah? So if I want to bring it forward a little bit more and keep the speckled effect, I could add a bit more sienna into it to give you the warmth. Clean brush, let's clean that palette actually. Burnt sienna, lots of water. So for those of you who don't know what glazing is, we just add water. So that is a glaze of sienna over the foreground area, which brings it a bit closer. Keep that nice and light, you don't have to have sienna there. And I know it's a bit warmer, but, and then here, you can put that there as well. So you get a nice texture, nice shapes, lovely sunlight. I remember the day well. Beautiful. Okay, that's it, I think. Take your tape off. Unless we put some, what they call, crows. I love some crows or bats in the distance. I mean, a lot of these splashes you can just turn into crows. There's loads around the house there, see. Big ones, little ones, all flying in different directions. Don't have them all flying in formation. Yeah. Little shapes in the background. Top of the pivots. Just the thing about the top of the pivots, where they are very light, that's why I say we don't use a lot of yellows. We use it at the beginning, or we can use it at the end. But the top of the pivots, I can put a glaze on that and make them a lot lighter and warmer. So we can glaze some of the trees as well, yeah, if they're not warm enough. So it doesn't really matter, because that's a nice yellow grey glaze where the sunlight's catching those trees against them, yeah, and reflected in the tree trunk. So that's it, yeah. Any questions, keep them online. I'm going having a beer actually, and then I'm going to do on Friday from the programme for Green Mount. It's my rigger, by the way. We're using pastel. Sorry, it is pastel. If you don't want me to do pastel, I will do something else. I'm not that bothered. But if we stick to the Green Mount class plan first, so this is my rigger with a few little branches, yeah. So we're using pastel. Don't know what we're doing yet because I need to look. Texture. So that. And then get the paper off, I think. If we're ready. Yes. I'm just going to add a little bit more darks in some of these shadows, just to change them and break them up. Some more blue, touches of alizarin. Just have to be careful. You start looking like other things. But you do get dark edges on some of the shadows like that, and then they blend and get reflections in the middle. So you get more of a kind of natural kind of looking shadow, okay? Nice and dark shadow. And you can always do that for pebbles, splatters in the road. And if you do that with water, you get white marks. And if you do it with goulash, just show you the goulash technique. People have been saying, well, it's not used in it. But I didn't really need to, but if you're a purist and you don't like using goulash, then you can use. You need to get it right first time, but otherwise, you know, you can always do things like that. So a bit of gouache mixed with the yellow will bring back the sunlight on the trees. And again, I'm just splattering it on because it's dark enough there for the light. You can do it down here as well. For the light to speckle and bring that that shadow. Okay, and that's about it. Probably a bit darker here. Let that blend into there. Leave it. Stop. Dead. Any questions? Good. Get that off. You don't have to finish it today. Take your time. I mean, I need to keep my hand in while I'm off. I hope you're all keeping safe and not shaking hands with Prince Charles. If you've been seeing Prince Charles lately, then I'll get yourself. I'll ring 111. Anyway, or Camilla. There you go. And let it dry, sign it, date it, think of a number, sell it, whatever. I don't know. It's still a bit wonky. There you go. So if we go that way, see, it's a bit wonky. I'll perfect this before I get before the virus dies off, which it will. Thank you very much. See you soon. See you Friday. Bye. It'll stop it. Finish.